Hello and welcome to Psyched, a conference where we explore psychedelics through social, economic, and political perspectives. Today we're joined by Ashley Spero. Spero channels energies through art making. An artist, painter, sculptress, muralist, and installation curator, they are a color weaver, firekeeper, ancient spirit, forest creature based in the NC Mountains, creating art and swimming in multidimensional spaces for over a decade. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to Psyched.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Do you want to start us off by just telling us a little bit about your art style, your artwork? What are you working on?
I'm a very much intuitive painter. I've been painting, making art my whole life, and really it's my own spiritual journey and my own medicine, and I speak through colors and emotions and shapes and just see what comes through, and it's just a constant expansion and adventure and journey.
Your art style is really beautiful for its not necessarily defined like pictures that you're trying to capture oftentimes, but as you described it, shapes, colors that kind of come together and really inspire more emotion than necessarily an image of a very specific realist structure. Have you found yourself more drawn to things that are a bit more abstract in your own like love of art and from the different artists that you've seen before?
Absolutely. I mean, I just see it as energy, you know? I think art's just energy for me, and I was never very interested in painting the real. For me, it was about, you know, painting a feeling, painting something that was deeper below the surface. That kind of pure essence of what it feels like to be alive and to be in kind of the juicy centers of life.
And in that process of expressing yourself through your artwork, are there places that are too vulnerable for you to be able to try and express in your emotions, or is everything fair game when you're creating and you're painting?
Well, I made art for probably a decade. I lived very simply in my 20s. I lived in a teepee and a mud hut and a yurt, and I didn't show anyone my art for a while. I kind of was just having my own process and figuring out what I was doing and just, you know, doing it for myself and my own healing and my own journey. And then, you know, a few years ago, I started, you know, getting people having big reactions to my art. And I was like, oh, I need to share this. And I mean, you could say that I always knew I always knew that I would be an artist. I didn't really think of it so much as a career, because I was like, well, I'll just, you know, be a farmer and grow herbs and make art, and that's great, you know. And then it kind of just unfolded, and it just started working, you know. It just kind of lined up, and I'm so grateful that so many people have been responding to it, and that feels really good too, you know. I'm glad I took the time and space to cultivate it on my own, and now it's really beautiful to be able to share that with others and try to help them on their own inspiration.
Are there moments where you experience any sort of like artist's block? And is there anything that you do to be able to get out of that state?
You know, not anymore really. You know, actually, no, because I think the key is just to play, like to not take it too seriously. I think artist block comes from having an expectation of yourself and of the painting, you know. It's, for me, I just try to stay playful with it, and I'll work on, I mean, I have like 20-something pieces in progress right now, and if something doesn't inspire me, I just move to the next. And sometimes that just means like with my fingers like swirling in the paint, you know, like the visceral act of the paint on a surface can always re-inspire me. It's not about what the painting is, it's about like the moment and the experience.
In my own experiences of creating something in the studio arts or painting or anything like that, sometimes I find it difficult to know when to step back, when to abandon a canvas, and when to just push through and keep going and seeing what happens. Would love to hear. Do you feel some of those same things? And what are some of the processes of or just ideas of how to know when to step back, abandon, or push through on a work that you're working on? Okay.
That I'm not so good at. That I feel like I just can go forever, and I don't know, that like sometimes I overdo pieces, and the stepping back part is really important because I'll just get into it. I think for me it's about moving around to different pieces, like if I stare at one for too long, I can't really see it as much anymore. So to just like refresh my eyes and look at something totally different. So a lot of times like I'll work on two paintings that are like totally different, feelings and emotions. I have two pieces right now where one of them is like really intense for me. It's about like my heart space and my like deep intense emotions, like that's what it feels like to me. And then the piece next to it is like super fun and goofy, so I have to like go back and forth to like balance how I'm feeling. So that kind of helps me balance like between the two pieces.
Yeah, it's so funny because I feel like the art world is so focused on an individual work, but for so many artists, works are created simultaneously at the same time. Their interplay is so much of what feeds one another. Do you feel like that's something that's being restrained or limited in the art world? And any ideas to be able to change that, to allow for works of art to interplay and work together more in museums and the art world in general?
Yeah, well, social media is weird. Like, that clearly creates this like linear sort of it's a beautiful tool, but I think it's definitely having a huge impact on young painters and all artists. It's the thought of having to translate something more on like a computer space than in like a room. It's a different way, but I also think it's, really beautiful, and it lets so many more people be exposed to the work. I've recently just been really inspired by creating installations, and I want to do more outdoor work and, be able to swirl that world back in. I think it's gonna happen. I think people are gonna crave the more visceral experiences. The more time we spend on the computer, I hope people crave the touch and the visceral and the seeing it with your own eyes.
It seems like there's a couple different reasons why, especially larger artists or more successful artists, however you define success, make art. Sometimes it's, because it's just a way of life. It's needed for survival, to be able to vent and just express emotion. Sometimes it's for, the love of validation and community praise and things like that. In those two worlds of painting for self and painting for others, have you seen any one of those drives be more successful for artists? Is it a combination of both? Would love to hear your thoughts.
I definitely think it's balance. I mean, it's always balance. For me, like, I spent all that time just creating it for myself, and then it felt really, I had some dark nights of the soul in that time, and then kind of coming, and it also healed me in a lot of ways, but it really brought out all the depths, and sharing it with other people, it kind of, I don't know, I guess it like lightened me up a little bit, to be able to put yourself out there, take it a little less seriously, see how many other artists are creating these amazing pieces. Like, there's so much good art out there that I wasn't really looking at for a while, and just diving into the whole arts community more and more every day is just so inspiring for me now. But I think my younger self, it was really important to like get my own voice first, because I think if you jump into that world right away, you make your first painting and you jump in, and you can lose your own style and
Yeah.
your own voice
Yeah.
in that.
When it comes to seeing what other artists are painting and working with other artists, what is your policy or approach to collaboration? Do you enjoy collaborating with artists? Are there specific types of artists you enjoy collaborating with, and what does that process look like?
I'm actually really new to collaborations. I just had to do things my way. I'm not gonna lie. Like my personality was just like, I just got to do this my way, like I see it. And the past couple of years, I've really through social media, I've been opened up to collaborating, and it's been so beautiful. And really, what it is about to me is creating like those real friendships. It has like the way that I can have a one-on-one relationship with a person after we collaborate on a piece of art, like that's soul family, like that's someone that you've like connected with in such an intimate way that like those are becoming my people. It goes beyond anything that's my art career, even though clearly that's a big part of it. It's about who do I want to spend time interacting with in my life, and collaborating with other artists has been so
Yeah.
fulfilling.
The process of creating art, especially art that's tangible, not digital, and you need to be there in person, is pretty incredible because it brings people to a geographic location together to be able to create something. Typically, and there are so many spaces in communities that you see that are specifically art studios, art collectives that create spaces for individuals. Do you feel like over the last year with COVID, some of that's been gone and missing? And looking into the future, do you think that there's going to be more drive for kind of these in-person, art communities popping up, or do you think that there's going to be more drive for the digital?
Well, I love that you say that because I mean, my whole calling for years now has been to create one of those spaces, and I see a lot of people in my community wanting to do that and create these places where artists can come and gather. And my view on it is, I want somewhere not too big. I'm not trying to build a crazy temple or something, but a place that feels really comfortable and easy. I want to have an artist residency that's very much like connected with nature. I live in a log cabin with some land, so I hope to build some little tiny houses and be able to host international artists is a big focus for me, to be able to bring people that wouldn't otherwise get to experience the art communities here, and just connect on that personal level with other artists. And when I was first becoming an artist, I lived on a farm and I lived in these like intentional communities and stuff, and it was just really to have the time and space to make art and to get to kind of shut out all the chaos and craziness of the world for a little bit and just like feel held in that space to make art. I want as many people that can have that experience in the world, artists or not, to get that, to just feel like they get some time to just like feel held and have colors around them and just like, do whatever they gotta do
Yeah.
for themselves.
There's so many parallels between the art communities that I've seen before, and kind of self-sustaining communities, and also what we're seeing in plant medicine spaces and plant medicine communities, this kind of like self-sustainable anarchic forms of self-reliance, self-governance, and community. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your personal relationship with plant medicines, if you have one that you're open to talking to, and maybe how that feeds into both your art and into the communities that you're building.
I mean, it's plant medicine has always been a part of my life. When I was younger, I didn't want it to be involved with my art at all because I didn't think I would be respected as I didn't want to be just a trippy artist, I didn't want to be just a psychedelic artist. But the way our culture has really evolved in the past 10 years, I've really started to embrace it as part of my path and part of my journey, and part of the healing process. My aunt and uncle did Native American church when I was young, so I got to experience that through my family. So that was its own kind of structure, and being around my family, and that was very disciplined and very strict in a way. And then music festivals and more like recreational, like chaotic psychedelic use, which that ended up not being my way, but it's all about that balance. And just in the past few years, I've really been sitting with ayahuasca and going to the jungle, and she's such a special medicine. And I also think like waiting until this point in my life for that was really important. I think, in different stages of your life, they can really come in and have a different impact on you. And it's really important that you feel grounded and stable and you're in a good place, and not see it as a quick fix to something. See it as like a path, and a long and windy one at that, and yeah, I think in my early 20s, a lot of confusion came out of it, and I took a really long break and kind of realigned and redefined what psychedelics mean for me and what they're for and how I want to use them. And that was really important too.
One of the things that I've personally seen over the last 12 months is there's been so many psychedelic retreat centers that have opened up, and many of them are beginning to explore that intersection of psychedelics and art. I'd love to hear your perspectives. Like, do you think that that's good? That's good for communities, that's good for art movements, and how do we build the best containers possible for people to be able to live at that intersection of art and psychedelics?
I mean, they're my favorite things. So to combine, and I want to paint. I always want to put those things together, but that's my personal journey, and I really think that what art and what psychedelics are about are like listening to your own inner, listening to your heart, and listening to what calls you, and being open-minded, and just everyone's path is so different and so unique. I have people ask me how to do this and how to do that, and most of the time I want to be like, I'm doing you a disservice by telling you, it's all a part of the journey. You have to find your way. But yes, art is a spirit guide to me. Psychedelics are a spirit guide to me. Spirit guides come through into my art. It's all one for me. It's all one. Creation. I mean, we're all
definitely
all one.
One of the themes of this conference, or the theme of this conference this year, is what is it that we still don't know? Is there something that throughout your journey you've come to accept as something that we as a society don't know, and perhaps that's been frustrating, perhaps that's something that you've accepted, but is there something like that in your life today?
Oh yeah, everything. Just as soon as I think that I know what's going on, as soon as I'm okay, I do a plant medicine ceremony, or I paint a great painting, and I'm okay, I got it. The universe just drops me into another level where everything is so much bigger and more expansive than I ever could have imagined. And I just keep going back to the place of I don't know anything. Yeah. So I think that's how it works, it just keeps expanding greater and greater. As soon as you think you're there, you're all right, I'm there, I finally got it. It's nah,
yeah.
There's so much more, it's so vast.
Definitely.
So
yeah, one of the, this question is a little bit quirky, but is there, when you're surrounded by paints and so many different colors, is there a color that you keep coming back to? Is there a color that your personal art style sees as most important when you have so many that you're always working with?
I have this theory that, how there's the zodiac signs. I feel like there's a giant color wheel. So like I feel like each day kind of has a color mood to it. Like I'll notice that I'll wake up and like put on like hot pink today is something. Like I'll put it on and then I'll want to paint with the same color that I'm wearing. And I'll look back at my art over the years and it's like that day every year I'm painting in like a similar shade of pink. And there's like something about the seasons. I'm sure it's probably different where you live, you know, different places hold different color energies. Different people you interact with have different auras and color energies. I think there's so much about color that we don't know.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I want to ask a couple last questions. One that I really enjoy asking is, are there individuals, artists that you've seen that you feel like aren't getting the recognition that they deserve? Folks that should be more platform, should be more in the public eye, and should really be noticed for all the incredible things that they're creating?
Gosh, there's so many. I think, I mean, for me, this is literally this year has been the first time I've really dug around on social media. Because, you know, this past year I was on my computer more than I have been in the past. Like, I wouldn't have ever spent the time doing that because normally I was doing festivals or, like, you know, not tuned into it. And I just discovered, like, I think that so many more people started playing with art this year. I think it was actually, like, a really big benefit of COVID is people were at home and they're watching videos. I started making these painting videos of these, like, close-up brush strokes. And the response was overwhelming. And I think so many people wanted to start making art and it's awesome. I just think there's so many more people becoming artists now, and it's maybe they always have and they're just like sharing more. But I think more people are going inward, and I think that's what happens. You know, more, you know, when you go inward, and you have the need to express it in the outward. So I think more and more people are. And even if you're not, you know, like a career artist and you're just making these amazing things, I think a lot more people are diving into that. I think that's, you know, our world healing, more people spending time creating.
And finally, I'd love to hear, are there any words of wisdom for the audience, for the people listening today? Anything that you want to impart or leave people with?
Just stay inspired. You know, and if you can be inspired and like have a spark, whatever weird thing you do that makes you feel lit up and sparked, like follow that. Like it, no matter how weird or crazy or what people think of it, if it feels like that warm, fuzzy, good, rainbow lit up feeling, like go towards that, you know, because the best thing that you can do is be in that space, because then you can share that spark with other people and you can spread that, and that's what it's about, you know. It's easy to get stuck in the muck and all the really hard things that are happening on the planet, and it's important to, you know, be aware of that. But I think our role is to light it up, you know, and spread that passion and that inspiration. Just try to stay inspired.
Well, Ashley, thank you so much for being our inspiration. We really appreciate having you today.
Thank you so much. Great talking to you.
You as well. To our audience, we'll see you next time on Psyched.